Good afternoon and welcome to today's event with Ascelia Pharma. With me today I have the Deputy CEO, Julie Wares Brogren. And today's topic is of course the recently released Q2 and half-year report, but we will of course dwell a little on the current rights issue as well. Important for Ascelia Pharma and important for all the shareholders. Welcome to the audience, and you are more than welcome to post your questions, and I will forward them after the presentation to Julie. And as always, we will record this event, and Ascelia Pharma and HCA Capital will distribute it on the relevant digital channels post the event. So with that said, welcome Julie, and please carry on.
Thank you for the introduction, Claus. It's good to be here. So as you said, I'd like to give an update on our half-year report, our current status, and we also have a fundraising ongoing, which we will take some time to talk about. I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so please pay attention to this. So briefly about Ascelia Pharma, we are focused on identifying, developing, and commercializing drugs that address unmet needs for patients who suffer from various rare cancer conditions. We have two products in our pipeline. One is Orviglance, which is in registration phase. The other one is Oncoral, where we are ready for phase 2. It's a potent chemotherapy in a daily tablet formulation. And I will focus today on Orviglance. So Orviglance, as I mentioned, it's in registration phase. It's a contrast agent, so a diagnostic drug for use in liver MRI imaging, specifically for the patients who also have severely impaired kidney function. We have an orphan drug designation, we have positive phase 3 data, and a very attractive global addressable market. So we have completed the phase 3 study with positive results, and I'll come back to that in a little while. So if we look at the Q2 and our progress, the key events covered the completion of the reading of the images for Orviglance in our phase 3 study and the communication of positive headline results early May. We, after the closing of the period, announced that we are carrying out a rights issue of units reaching up to 105 million Swedish kronor. And I'll come back a little bit to that here, and we can talk about it, of course, also if you have questions. So this rights issue has the objective to make sure we can continue with the execution of our plan for the NDA submission. So we're preparing the filing to the FDA for Orviglance, and also that we are in a strong position to negotiate with partners to commercialize Orviglance. This fundraising in units allows all our existing shareholders to take part of the value creation opportunities ahead. And the subscription period starts tomorrow, along with the trading in the unit rights on Nasdaq in Stockholm. It runs until the 3rd of September, the subscription period. So now I'll just run through the Orviglance opportunity. Orviglance addresses a specific, well-defined unmet need for liver imaging in patients who may have cancer or have cancer and who also have severely impaired kidney function. We address a global market opportunity of $800 million. Half of that is in the US. We've completed our clinical development with 9 successful studies and very strong phase 3 data. We have our commercial scale manufacturing ready, and we are now advancing Orviglance into the regulatory filing phase and then subsequently into approval. So to go back to the unmet need for Orviglance, managing cancer in the liver is very important in cancer care. So cancer in the liver can be primary liver cancer or liver metastases, and they are common in many cancer types. For example, colorectal cancer, metastatic breast cancer, and so forth. It's very important for these patients that physicians detect cancer in the liver, they can plan the right treatment, and they can follow up on the care provided. So to do that, the gold standard is to undergo an MRI. And typically today with an MRI, you will receive a contrast agent that will be based on gadolinium. Gadolinium is a toxic heavy metal. And a while ago, it was discovered that patients who also had severely impaired kidney function had difficulties excreting the gadolinium after the IV injection. And there were some quite severe side effects, and one is called nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, and it was fatal for some of these patients. So the regulatory authorities implemented some warnings and restrictions. The FDA has put in place a black box warning for the use of gadolinium contrast agents in patients who also have severely impaired kidney function. And this is where Orviglance can help patients, because Orviglance is a liver-specific agent, and it's based on manganese, which is a natural trace element. So it's not associated with these gadolinium-related risks for patients. So Orviglance aims to be the imaging option that doesn't risk patients because it's based on manganese and not the gadolinium agents available today. So we can help patients with Orviglance, and now we have phase 3 data supporting the superiority of Orviglance to an unenhanced MRI, so an unenhanced procedure with no contrast agent, which is the standard of care for these patients today. Our phase 3 study demonstrated that you see these lesions better, so its visualization is the primary endpoint. And that means that Orviglance scored significantly higher for all the 3 readers that read the images from our phase 3 study. So it's standard that you have more than 1 reader. 3 is sort of the common number. And all of these readers scored the Orviglance images higher than the unenhanced images. They all scored higher with statistical significance, and the results are conclusive and reliable. The common adverse events in the study were aligned to what we've previously seen, and there was no serious drug adverse events observed in the study. So we announced the positive phase 3 data early May, and that actually means that now we have completed the clinical development. In total, almost 300 patients have been tried Orviglance in a clinical study, and we now have the clinical package that we will use in our submission to regulatory authorities. The first regulatory authority that we will focus on is the FDA to have an approval for a US launch. We have the clinical package, and now we need to compile all of this, including the non-clinical and CMC, into an FDA NDA submission. So our goal is to submit that in the middle of next year. And on the way, there are a couple of milestones. One is in early Q4 this year, we will have all the detailed tables and data that comes beyond, of course, the headline results. So we need the full clinical study report. And then we will have conclusions from a pre-submission meeting with the FDA, which is also standard. We will have the conclusions from that meeting early next year. With all of these things in place, we are on track for an FDA NDA submission in the middle of next year. So just to recap on the commercial side, we can address a market of $800 million annually with Orviglance. Half of that almost is in the US. This is a launch focused on these very specific patients with the unmet need to have liver imaging without the risks associated with gadolinium. So patients with severely impaired kidney function. And we know a lot about who these patients are and what the commercial opportunity is in terms of pricing. 100,000 procedures in the US for abdominal imaging is today completed in patients who fall under the black box warning of liver imaging. They can be found at the larger hospitals. And we've also tested the pricing and market access strategy and opportunity both with payers, and also we've looked into benchmarks of innovative diagnostics to determine our strategy for launch. So with these insights in place, we know that it is a launch where there's a high value per patient, but also that these patients are found at the larger hospitals. So it can be a very focused launch with a very focused field team. Our strategy for the launch is to find a commercialization partner, or perhaps more than one, looking at the global opportunity. And this strategy is the one where we have the optimal balance between investment required and the future revenues. It means also, of course, that we can leverage the capabilities already in place at a partner's, you could say, in a partner's organization. And these dialogues are ongoing, as many of our shareholders and you, Claus, already know. And our focus is to make sure we have the optimal agreement with a partner and to make sure that Orviglance is ready for launch when we have approval. So all the preparations are progressing well, and we have good feedback from the experts and key opinion leaders. And of course, we're working on also making sure that the scientific community and the experts support our launch and support the launch of a partner. So I'll now talk a little bit about our financials, and then we can go to the questions. So to come back to this rights issue, the goal of the rights issue is to really capitalize on the very strong phase 3 data we have. We have passed the most important milestone of bringing a product to market, which also means we have reduced or minimized the most important risks in preparing a market for launch and in completing development of a drug. We'll be raising up to 105 million Swedish kronor. We already have investment commitments and guarantees amounting to 70 million Swedish kronor. And the structure of the rights issue is in units. So 1 unit is 3 shares and 1 warrant, and 1 unit will cost a little bit more than 5 Swedish kronor. The use of proceeds is that this capital helps us make sure we are fully on track to submit a high quality, timely NDA by the middle of next year, and that we are in a good position to negotiate with partners. It's obvious that you are in a better negotiation position when you have a strong balance sheet, and that's a key objective of this capital raise. We will also use it, some of it, to amortize the part of the convertible loan that we already have with Finja Capital, the former Formunor. If we could just quickly look at the numbers, in Q2, our operating loss was 11 million, a little bit more than 11 million Swedish kronor, and that's actually even a little bit less than it was in Q1. Of course, this is really key to us, and that we've maintained and controlled our costs in this last period, and that puts us in a strong position as well, that we have, so you can say, fairly low running costs. In terms of liquidity, we had 30 million at the end of Q2, and when we add the minimum capital raised in this rights issue, we will have a runway beyond the NDA submission in the middle of next year. So to wrap up on our focus areas, we have two key focus areas. One is to advance Orviglance to approval, starting with the regulatory submission, where we have a couple of milestones on the way. The full clinical study report, early Q4, conclusions from a FDA pre-submission meeting in Q1 next year, and then the submission in the middle of the year next year. Our other focus area is to progress Orviglance commercialization readiness, where the focus is to set up partnership agreements for the launch, and then to make sure that Orviglance is ready for launch when approved. And we look forward to, in the future, also ramping up on Oncoral and our second generation asset. But for now, where we see the value and the priorities for Ascelia is in advancing Orviglance to approval and making sure we have the right setup for a partner to commercialize Orviglance. So that was the presentation, Claus.
Yes, thanks a lot, Julia, for a thoroughly run through of both the Q2 and the rights issue, and of course what's in between. So if we just back a little, Julia, there's a couple of questions coming in already, and to the audience, you're more than welcome to post more questions. But if we back a little to the timeline regarding submission of your
okay. Yeah, we keep it here then.
Yeah, we can keep it there. That's fine.
Yeah.
So just, so the investor community understands, this is not a one-way communication. You get the headline data, you get the full report in Q4. What kind of interaction do you have with FDA, and could you explain a little about that? Because I know you have some really good takes on that, Julia.
Well, first and foremost, the interactions with FDA are ongoing throughout a development project. So we have had many interactions in the past. Some have been related to the orphan drug designation. They are also related to the design of clinical studies. So the FDA has been part of the decision-making all the way. And then we are reaching the pre-submission meeting, which is also a standard meeting you have with the FDA. And that's where you sort of outline all the key, you can say, decisions for what we would like to be in the label and how we would like to present the data. And then we have a discussion with the FDA where they can give us some feedback on how some of the answers they'd like to see, or some adjustments to the proposals we make. So when you get to the end, there's always the very end, there's a little bit of, you could call it negotiation about the actual label. So you of course have your optimal label where you're stretching the boundaries, and we think we are in a very strong position to achieve a label for our target patient population, which is the base case for this submission.
You have a very strong data set, so that all things equal, it's probably a little easier for you to file than if you have side effects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then also to clarify for new investors, when you talk about the target market of $800 million, well, that's not the total market. This is the market for the unmet need. The market that gadolinium is not addressable for. Isn't that true, Julia?
Yes, the 800 million, that is for patients who have any type of cancer and are referred to a liver imaging procedure in the US or in Europe for that matter, and who also fall under the black box warning, so who have severely impaired kidney function.
Yeah, just go on.
Yeah. So that's, you could say it's the target patient population that we also have in our phase 3 study. And then, of course, the 800 million is based on thorough work with experts and payers who will help us understand how it would be reimbursed, how it's covered, and what the pricing opportunity is. And they can fully understand that this is a small and also very vulnerable patient population. And that's why the pricing opportunity is quite different compared to drugs that address a wider patient population. We also know these typically have other comorbidities, so they would have hypertension, diabetes, obesity, so they are very vulnerable, and payers and physicians understand this, and they are well aware.
Thanks a lot, Julie. So if we assume that you get a green light from FDA, you have a strong data set, you are in dialogue with FDA all the time, and we assume that you're going to announce some kind of partner before you file. This is my assumptions. When would you be able to enter the market commercially? I know it's a difficult answer, but do you have a timeline on that?
So with an NDA submission mid next year, the standard review timeline is 10 months. So that's the FDA clock target for a review. As we talked about last time, there are some options for a shorter review. This is the standard review timeline. For this kind of product, especially with a partner in place, as you say, that's absolutely the assumption when we get to that point. Then the launch can be pretty fast afterwards. Again, it's about having a ready-to-go infrastructure, both in terms of logistics and in terms of a commercial team. And as we talked about, it's a focused launch, so it's possible to really focus on the bigger hospital groups in the US that carry most of the value for this asset. So I think it can be launched. I mean,
yeah, and you have a pretty good overview. You mentioned that in earlier events with us about how
it's possible to launch very quickly after approval for this kind of drug, and that's also key.
Yeah. So somewhere in 2026, first half. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All things equal. Thanks a lot, Julia. Well, let's jump a little to the rights issue. There's a couple of questions here. First, there's a question from shareholder. Why didn't you announce the unit price when you announced the intentions to raise capital? Is there anything we should be aware of there?
I think what we all need to be aware of is that every company wants the best possible, you can say, structure on their balance sheet and also on the capital market. So when you have a rights issue or a fundraising round, the terms are part of the negotiation of the ones that are putting in the guarantees, and it's part. It's a snapshot of what the market conditions are at the moment. There's a lot of biotechs out there looking for funding. It's been a tough market for quite some time. So the setup in our issue is really part of the terms.
Thanks a lot, Julia. And then my next question, why announcing that now? I know you heard that question before, and I know there's several reasons for that. You also mentioned it in your presentation, but you could probably just shortly repeat it.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at our closing of Q2, we had 30 million, and we had a loan structure with convertibles totaling 35 million. We want to be in a strong position to negotiate with commercialization partners, and we need a better balance sheet to be in that strong position. So this was the right time for that reason. It's also the right time because to submit a high quality NDA submission, we need full clarity on having the resources to source in the experts and the help, and to make sure we have the right competencies in place for the NDA submission. So this round of financing really secures those two elements: high quality NDA submission and timely, and then also making sure we're in a strong position to negotiate with a partner. And we see also now if the markets are settling a little bit, but there has also been some ups and downs and bumps in the market, and it's always difficult to determine what the right timing for a fundraise is. There's also a degree of making sure you use the opportunities that are out there, so you are always financed for the key milestones ahead.
And I fully agree. The window is open now, or at least partly open. So in that sense, it's right, Julia. Well, then there's a question here from another shareholder. If you have sufficient capital on the back of the rights issue, and you can read it two ways. First of all, you should have sufficient capital financing your Orviglance and commercialization of Orviglance. But of course, you have another product that is currently on hold. So maybe you can elaborate on the two parts, Julia.
The focus for this rights issue is Orviglance, and it's the Orviglance NDA preparations, and then to make sure we have a partner with the right terms. So we haven't included, as you can see here, any activities on Oncoral or second generation Orviglance in the use of proceeds. So our strategy is to make sure that we can reach these milestones and a successful agreement. So that's the right priority for us. This is where we create most value right now. So I think that we need to see also where we land with the rights issue, right? It's somewhere between 105 and 70. Yes. But none of we all know that you need a lot more for the phase 2 study of Oncoral that we have communicated before. We also talked about for Oncoral, the future of Oncoral is also a partnering, but Oncoral is not included in the strategy for this rights issue.
And for the investors, it's important to understand that when you have Orviglance on the market, you will actually get a pretty good cash flow. So that's also a possibility to look over your capital structure, and maybe you're in a position where you can finance Oncoral. I know it's pure speculation, but that's how stuff looks like.
And Oncoral it's a very interesting asset. As we mentioned up front, it's a daily formulation of a well-known chemotherapy, and it really has the potential to help patients achieve better outcomes, both in terms of efficacy and safety, actually to balance that trade-off between the higher efficacy at the expense of a more safety concern. So there's a lot of opportunities for Oncoral starting in gastric cancer. But for now, and for these milestones ahead, the focus is on Orviglance and the NDA submission and partnering for Orviglance. That's the objective of this rights issue.
Thanks a lot, Julia. And I see, well, time is more or less up. I don't know if there's further questions out there, so please post your questions and I will forward them to Julia. Doesn't seem like there's any other questions coming in for the moment. So by that said, Julia, I'm really glad to host you here today. And first of all, I would say I hope you get a successful round. I get more than the 70 millions. And I can also mention for the investors listening in today that this morning we released a one-pager on Julia, and it's on our homepage, where you can read more about the company. And if you have questions, you are more than welcome to either contact Julia direct. You find her mail address on the company's homepage, or write to us and we will try to help you out. So by that said, thanks a lot for all the good questions. And Julia, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.